You keep saying you need more time. But what if time was never the problem? What if the thing you're searching for can only be found when time disappears? There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from living ahead of yourself. You know the one. It's the tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. The weight that rest doesn't lift. You lie down at night with a list of things you didn't get to. You wake up already behind. And somewhere in the margins of all that rushing, you tell yourself the same quiet lie. When I have more time, then I'll live. More time to breathe, more time to think, more time to feel like yourself again. But the hours pass, days accumulate, weeks blur into months. And still, that sense of arrival never comes. Because you're not actually living in time at all. You're living in the space between now and later, in the gap between what is and what should be. And that gap, my friend, is where presence goes to die. Most of us spend our entire lives preparing for a moment that never arrives. We're always getting ready, always setting up, always one step away from the life we think we're supposed to be living. We say things like, once this project is done, or after I get through this season, or when things settle down, and we mean it. We genuinely believe that peace is just around the corner. That clarity is waiting on the other side of our to-do list. But here's the truth that no productivity system will ever tell you. The feeling of enough time is not something you earn. It's something you stop refusing. Think about the last time you felt truly present, not distracted, not planning, not replaying yesterday or rehearsing tomorrow. Just here, fully alive in the moment you were standing in. When was that? And more importantly, what made it possible? It wasn't more time. It was the absence of the need for more time. Presence doesn't ask for space on your calendar. It doesn't wait for permission. It exists only in the now, and the now is the one thing you've been trained to ignore. Because the now doesn't have goals. It doesn't have outcomes. It doesn't move you forward or make you better or give you something to show for it. The now simply is. And in a world obsessed with becoming, so being feels like a waste. So we fill every silence. We turn every pause into a transition. We treat stillness like an emergency and rush to fix it with noise, scrolling, planning, worrying. Anything to avoid the raw, unfiltered presence of this moment. But what if the thing you're avoiding is the only thing that can save you? There's an old Sufi teaching that says, the treasure you seek is buried in the ground beneath your feet. But you keep walking. You keep searching. You keep believing it must be somewhere else, somewhere further, somewhere you haven't looked yet. And so you miss it, over and over. Not because it's hidden, but because you're not here to find it. Presence is not a luxury. It's not the reward you get after everything is handled. It's the ground itself. It's the place where life actually happens. And you can't get there by managing time better. You can only get there by realizing that time, as you've been using it, is a distraction from the only moment that ever existed. Right now. Not the now you'll get to later. Not the now that starts after you finish reading this. The now that is here while you read these words. That now. That breath. That heartbeat. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's where everything you've been chasing is waiting. But we resist it. We resist it with everything we have. Because presence asks something of us that we're terrified to give. It asks us to stop, to let go, to surrender the illusion of control. And that feels dangerous. Because if you stop moving, if you stop doing, if you stop improving and optimizing and preparing, then who are you? That's the question presence forces you to face. And it's the question most of us would rather run from for the rest of our lives. You see, time is a story we tell ourselves to avoid being here. It's the narrative that says, not yet, not now, soon. It's the voice that promises peace in the future, so you don't have to confront the chaos of the present. And as long as you believe that voice, you'll keep looking for more time, more hours, more years, more life. But you don't need more life. You need to inhabit the life you already have. And that starts with a single, radical realization. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing out. You are exactly where presence has always been, right here, in this breath, in this moment, in the space between the words you just read and the ones you're reading now. That space is not empty. It's full. It's alive. It's the only place you've ever actually existed. And if you can learn to rest there, even for a second, you'll discover something that no amount of time could ever give you. You'll discover that you were never lacking anything. You were just looking in the wrong direction. So before we go any further, let me ask you this. What if you didn't need more time? What if everything you've been postponing, everything you've been saving for later, could only ever be experienced now? What if the life you're waiting for is the life that's already here, waiting for you to notice it? That's not a riddle. It's an invitation. There's a specific kind of prison we build for ourselves, and most of us don't even realize we're living in it. It's made of plans, expectations, imagined futures, mental rehearsals of conversations that haven't happened yet, and the bars. The bars are made of time, not real time, not the turning of the earth or the movement of the sun, but psychological time, the kind that lives only in your head, the kind that says you'll be happy when, or you'll finally relax after, or you'll feel whole once you've achieved. This is the great illusion, and it runs deeper than you think. Every time you say, I'll be present once things calm down, you're saying, I'll live once life stops asking me to live. Every time you think, I just need to get through this, you're treating now as an obstacle instead of the destination. And every time you postpone joy, peace, or presence until some future condition is met, you're agreeing to live in a state of perpetual waiting. And waiting is not living. Waiting is the opposite of living. Alan Watts once said something that shook me to my core. We are living in a culture entirely hypnotized by the illusion of time, in which the so-called present moment is felt as nothing but an infinitesimal hairline between an all-powerfully causative past and an absorbingly important future. Read that again. An infinitesimal hairline. That's how we treat the present, like it barely exists, like it's just the thin edge between what was and what will be. A meaningless transition, a hallway between rooms, and so we rush through it. We barely glance at it. We certainly don't live in it. But here's what we don't realize: the past is a memory. The future is a thought. And the present is the only thing that's ever actually real. Everything you remember happened in a now that no longer exists. Everything you're planning will happen in a now that hasn't arrived. The only now that ever is this one. And you keep missing it. Not because you're busy, but because you've been taught to believe that this moment is not enough. That's the trap. That's the deepest cut. The belief that now is lacking, that now is insufficient, that now is something to get through so you can get to the real moment, the important moment, the moment when life finally begins. But life is not beginning later. It's happening now. And it's been happening now the entire time. Think about it. How many moments have you missed because you were thinking about the next one? How many sunsets have you looked at without seeing because your mind was already at dinner? How many conversations have you had where you weren't really there, where you were nodding and smiling while your thoughts circled somewhere else entirely? And it's not your fault. You've been conditioned to live this way. The entire structure of modern life is designed to pull you out of the present. Notifications, deadlines, goals, metrics, progress reports. Everything is about what's next. Everything is about improvement, optimization, getting ahead. And in that race, presence becomes a casualty. Because presence has no ambition. Presence doesn't want to be anywhere other than here. And in a world that worships striving, that feels like failure. But what if it's the other way around? What if the real failure is spending your entire life arriving at a place you never actually inhabit? There's a Zen story about a student who asks his master, "What is the most important thing?" And the master replies, "Attention." The student asks, "And what is the second most important thing?" The master says, "Attention, not effort, not discipline, not willpower, attention." Because when you're truly paying attention, you're here. And when you're here, everything changes. The quality of your experience shifts. The texture of your life becomes richer. You start to notice things you've been walking past for years. The way light falls through a window, the sound of your own breathing, the aliveness in a simple moment of quiet. And suddenly, you realize, this is it. This is the thing I've been searching for. Not out there, not later, here, now. In the plainness of this unremarkable, irreplaceable present. But we don't trust that. We don't trust that the present could be enough. Because we've been sold a story that says meaning is something you have to build, achieve, or become worthy of. And as long as you believe that, presence will feel like procrastination. So you keep pushing. You keep delaying. You keep telling yourself that peace is just on the other side of productivity. And the years pass. And the weight of tomorrow grows heavier. And the gap between who you are and who you think you should be widens. Until one day, you wake up and realize you spent your whole life preparing for a moment that was always already here. And that's the tragedy. Not that you didn't accomplish enough, but that you didn't inhabit enough. That you confused movement with aliveness. That you mistook the future for the point. Presence doesn't require you to abandon your goals. It doesn't ask you to stop planning, or dreaming, or building. It simply asks you to stop using those things as an excuse to not be here. Because here is where your life is. Here is where love happens. Here is where meaning lives. Here is where you meet yourself, not as a project or a problem, but as a presence, a being, a breath. And when you stop running from that, when you stop treating this moment like a waiting room, something profound happens. You stop needing more time, because you realize time was never the gift, presence was. So how do you come back? How do you return to a place you've been trained to leave? How do you learn to be here when everything in you has been conditioned to be elsewhere? The answer is simpler than you think. And that's exactly why it's so hard. You don't need a method. You don't need a technique. You don't need 10 steps or a morning routine or a guided meditation app. You just need to notice, to pay attention, to realize that you've drifted, and then gently, without judgment, come back. That's it. That's the whole practice. But let me be clear, simple does not mean easy, because the drift is constant. Your mind is not designed to stay here. It's designed to plan, predict, and protect. It's designed to scan for danger, solve problems, and simulate futures. And all of that happens in psychological time, in the realm of thought, in the space of what if and what next. So presence is not a destination you arrive at once and stay forever. It's a returning, again and again. 1,000 times a day you'll drift, and 1,000 times a day you'll have the chance to come back. And every time you do, you're choosing life. You're choosing reality. You're choosing the only moment you ever actually have. Let me give you something practical. Not a rule, not a system, just a doorway. Right now, as you take in these words, notice your breath. Don't change it. Don't deepen it. Don't try to make it better. Just notice it. Feel the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of the inhale, the warmth of the exhale. That's presence. Right there, in the noticing. You didn't have to go anywhere. You didn't have to become anyone. You just had to pay attention to what was already happening. And in that attention, something shifted. You stopped being a thought and became a body. You stopped rehearsing the future and landed in the now. That's all it takes. A moment of awareness, a pause, a return. And you can do this anywhere, in line at the grocery store, in the middle of a conversation, while washing dishes or walking to your car. Presence doesn't require stillness. It just requires noticing. But here's the deeper truth. Presence is not something you do. It's something you stop doing. You stop resisting this moment. You stop wishing it were different. You stop mentally leaving so you can get to the next thing. And in that stopping, you realize you were already here. You just weren't paying attention. This is what the mystics have been trying to tell us for centuries. That the kingdom of heaven is not a place you go. It's a presence you recognize. That enlightenment is not a transformation. It's a realization that you're not broken, lacking, or late. You're just distracted. And the cure for distraction is not more time. It's more awareness. Now I know what you might be thinking. This sounds nice, but I have real responsibilities. I have deadlines, bills, people depending on me. I can't just sit around being present all day. And you're right. Presence is not passivity. It's not checking out. It's not spiritual bypassing or pretending life doesn't ask things of you. But here's what changes when you act from presence. Your actions have a different quality. You're not doing things to get them over with. You're not going through the motions while your mind is somewhere else. You're here, fully engaged, and that changes everything. A meal cooked with presence tastes different. A conversation held with presence feels different. Work done with presence becomes its own reward, not just a means to an end. Because presence transforms the ordinary into the sacred, not by adding anything to it, but by removing the veil of distraction that made it seem ordinary in the first place. There's a story about a monk who was asked, "What did you do before enlightenment?" He said, "I chopped wood and carried water." Then they asked, "And what do you do now after enlightenment?" He smiled and said, "I chop wood and carry water." Same actions, same life, but entirely different experience. Because the quality of attention had changed. He wasn't doing tasks to get somewhere. He was living, fully, in each moment. That's what presence offers. Not an escape from life, but a deeper entry into it. So here's the invitation: choose one ordinary thing today. One task you usually rush through: making coffee, brushing your teeth, walking to your car, and do it with full attention, not because it's special, but because you are. Feel the weight of the cup, the temperature of the water, the texture of the toothbrush, the ground beneath your feet. Don't make it a meditation. Don't turn it into a performance. Just be there, fully, for those few seconds, and notice what happens. Notice how the experience changes. Notice how your mind quiets. Notice how the urgency softens. That's the doorway. That's how you train yourself to live here, not by doing more, but by being more present with what you're already doing. And over time, those moments expand. They start to bleed into the rest of your life, until one day you realize you're not waiting for life anymore. You're living it, not perfectly, not constantly, but more often, more fully, more real. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Because presence is not about achieving some permanent state of bliss. It's about waking up to the life you're already living. It's about realizing that the moment you've been postponing is the only moment there ever was. And when you stop running from it, when you stop treating it like a problem to solve or a gap to fill, something miraculous happens. You become free. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you stop needing them to. There's a particular kind of relief that comes when you stop trying to be somewhere other than where you are. It's not the relief of accomplishment. It's not the relief of finally getting what you wanted. It's deeper than that. It's the relief of realizing you don't have to keep running. You don't have to keep chasing. You don't have to keep proving. You don't have to keep waiting for your life to begin. Because it's already begun. It's been happening this whole time. And the only thing that kept you from feeling it was your insistence that this moment wasn't the right one. That's what presence gives you. Not a better moment. Just the freedom to stop rejecting the one you're in. And when you stop rejecting this moment, you stop rejecting yourself. Because on some level, you've been treating yourself the same way you've been treating time. Always needing to be better. Always needing to be different. Always needing to be ready for the real thing. But you are the real thing, right now, as you are. Not when you're more successful. Not when you're more healed. Not when you've finally figured it all out. Now, this moment is not a rough draft. It's not a practice run. It's not the before picture. It's your life. And it's the only one you'll ever have. So what happens when you stop waiting? What happens when you stop treating this breath, this heartbeat, this unrepeatable now as something to get through? You start to see, really see. The world doesn't change, but your relationship to it does. The colors get sharper. The sounds get clearer. The simple act of being alive becomes enough, not in some abstract, philosophical way, but in a real, felt, embodied way. You start to notice the miracle of your own existence. The fact that you're here at all. that you're conscious, that you're aware, that you're able to experience this moment, whatever it contains. And with that noticing comes a kind of gratitude that doesn't need a reason. A quiet, unshakable sense of okayness. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is here. And here is enough. I think that's what all the great teachers were pointing to. Not a doctrine, not a belief. Just a recognition, a remembering, a coming home to the present moment, which is the only moment that ever was or ever will be. Eckhart Tolle said, "Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have, not as a limitation, as a liberation. Because if this is all you have, then this is all you need to work with. You don't have to wait for better circumstances. You don't have to wait for more clarity. You don't have to wait for the right time. You can choose to be here, fully, now. And in that choice, everything shifts. Your anxiety about the future softens because you're not living there anymore. Your regret about the past loosens because you're not stuck there anymore. You're here. In the only place where life can actually touch you. And life does touch you. When you're present, you feel it. The texture. The aliveness. The strange, beautiful fact of existence. You start to notice small things. The way your body moves. The sound of rain. The warmth of sunlight on your skin. Things you've been walking past for years suddenly become vivid again. Because you're not looking through them anymore. You're looking at them. And in that looking, you realize you've been given a gift. A brief, unrepeatable window of consciousness in an infinite universe. And you've been spending it somewhere else. Somewhere that doesn't exist. But now you're back. And the world is still here. Waiting. Not demanding anything. Just offering itself. Moment by moment. So here's the truth I want to leave you with. You don't need more time. You never did. What you need is to stop fragmenting the time you have. To stop dividing your life into moments that matter and moments that don't. To stop treating presence like a luxury you'll get to someday. Because someday is not coming. Someday is a story. A postponement. A refusal to be here. And here is all there is. Not in a sad way. Not in a limiting way. But in the most liberating way possible. You are free. Right now. Free to stop waiting. Free to stop chasing. Free to stop believing that life is something that happens later. It's happening now. In this breath. In this heartbeat. In the space between these words. And if you can feel that, even for a moment, you'll understand what I'm saying. You'll understand that presence is not something you achieve. It's something you allow. It's the natural state you return to when you stop doing everything else. So stop. Just for a second. Stop reading. Stop thinking. Stop planning. Just be here. Feel your body. Feel the air. Feel the aliveness that's been here all along, waiting for you to notice it. That's it. That's the whole teaching. That's the freedom you've been searching for. Not out there. Not later. Here. Now. And when you forget, because you will, come back. Gently. Without judgment. Just return. Because presence is not a destination. It's a practice. A lifetime of returning. 1,000 small moments of waking up. Of remembering. Of choosing to be here instead of elsewhere. And each time you choose it, you're choosing life. You're choosing life. You're choosing the only thing that was ever real. This moment. Right here. Right now. You don't need more time. You just need to be here for the time you have. And that, my friend, is everything.